he stands for something, not just a gay icon, not just an alien in Irishman in England, not just a wit, not just an aesthete, not just a moral philosopher, a social and political commentator, a playwright, a poet, all the things he was, but somehow he, in his life and in the ruin of his life, in the terrible things that happened to him, the more you know about him, his kindness, his directness, his sweetness of nature, the more important he becomes, because there is no separation between his intellect and the way he treated people. And I think the day I got bored of Oscar would be the day that I became allergic to oxygen. It's just not thinkable. So I value him highly.
Psychotherapy.
That's a good P, that's very good. Well, I think every day people are discovering new things about the brain. It is a cliche to say it's the undiscovered country within us. And we know so little about it. It would appear that the root of severe unhappinesses, such as cause suicide or behavior so terrible, so unhappy for the individual and those around the individual, as to warrant sectioning and severe treatment, that the causes of those are still far from being understood, but they appear to be some mixture of the wiring, the neurology, if you like, the endocrinology, the hormones, the well-known things like serotonin and dopamine and noradrenaline and the encephalins and endorphins, and the physical synaptic pathways and other such things, and the areas of the brain that are inhibited in growth by trauma, physical or mental. All these things come together in some way to alter. But psychotherapy, of course, is easy to mock if you're British, partly because the only people you ever hear about who get psychotherapy are those who talk on television, or people like me. And so you're bound to think psychotherapy is just something that rich celebrities do, like they might play polo or they might do this. So the first people we ever heard of who did psychotherapy were Woody Allen and John Cleese. But in the meantime, it's been given to hundreds of thousands of people who don't actually appear on talk shows and talk about it. So I think what's unfair sometimes is people thinking that it's just it's a designer accessory of those in the public eye who can talk about how unhappy they are and how miserable they are. Actually, if you've ever been to, take someone like Homerton, a place I've visited in the East End of London, you realize that mental health is almost like drug dealing or anything else, is essentially a problem for the homeless, the dispossessed, the immigrant, the uneducated, the underclass, if you like. That is where real mental health, that's where the front line is. And so the idea that you can get up and walk it off is mistaken.
Q.
Q now, yeah.
Q. Go on then. QI.
Oh. I thought you were going to say queer. So, right, QI. Yes, well, gosh. It was the brainchild of a man called John Lloyd, who is a remarkable fellow. He was also a Cambridge footlighter, but back in the same time as his friend Douglas Adams, and he started off doing radio comedy as a producer as a young man. He started the News Quiz, for example, and then he made the jump to television with a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News, which I'm sure you'll remember, which made stars of Rowan Atkinson and Mel Smith and Griff Rhys-Jones and Pamela Stevenson, and as the producer of that, and also Richard Curtis was the lead writer, as they say in America. So it was a really talented bunch. He left not 9 O'Clock News after a relative number of series, and he and Rowan and Richard then produced Blackadder, the first series of the Blackadder. And then after that, he created and devised and Spitting Image. So he really is a sort of comedy god. Then I sort of got to know him because, you know, we had mutual friends, and he asked me to be in Blackadder 2, which I was in. So I've sort of known him well since those days. That was in 1985, I think. And then we went through quite a lot of Blackadders. And then some point, when would it have been? In 2002, I suppose, or 2001 maybe, he took me out to lunch and gave me this idea for a show that, which I think he already had the title QI for it. About things just being so interesting, and maybe if you could have a quiz show about the universe and history and people and things. And I particularly liked the idea, as I was beginning to get tired, as I'm sure we all are really, of television's incessant interest in popular culture, in pop music and actors and actresses and in politics. I loved the idea of a quiz show that wasn't about the week's news, wasn't about Jordan, whoever she is, and it wasn't about Big Brother, and it wasn't about any of those things. It was an absolute free zone from any of that, but nor was it self-consciously about art and things. It was just about anything that was quite interesting. It's such a small and silly remit, but the title came about because he would say something, and someone would go, God, that's quite interesting. And you don't notice, you use the phrase a lot. Quite. Anyway, at the lunch, he said, what do you think? I said, well, gosh, I'd love to be involved as long as I don't have to be the host, because for some reason I had this idea that being a host was a miserable job. I think possibly because I'd been on the news one. Have I got news to you? Why do I always forget its title? I always want to call it something anyway else. And I always felt that Angus looked rather harassed, and I thought it was much more fun being a guest. So I said, look, as long as I don't have to be the host. He said, no, that's fine. No, you won't be the host. So that was agreed, and then he called me up and said, BBC are interested, and we're going to do a pilot. Trouble is, I can't find anybody to be the host, so for the pilot, would you be the host? And I said, oh, all right, if it's just for the pilot, I'll be the host. So we did a pilot, and then about 3 weeks later, he called up and said, there's really good news. I said, what is it? He said, the BBC love it. They want to do it as a series. I said, oh, hooray. He said, but on one condition. I said, oh. Yeah, so I've been the host. And actually, I don't know why I was so against it. It's really good fun being the host.
Let's go with Rowling.
Oh, Rowling, as in JK.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this was again, it's one of these odd gigs you get. Many years ago, my agent called me up and said, as she might from time to time, oh, I know, she said, there's an audio book. And I quite like doing audiobooks. It's really fun. I often used to think before I, had even got an equity card that if I was going to be an actor, even if I never really got any good parts, to read stories into a microphone would be terrific fun. And so I've always liked doing audiobooks. And she said, there's an audiobook, it's a children's one. And I thought immediately, oh, that's good, that'll be half a day, because they're short. And she said, I've read it, I think it's rather good, you might enjoy doing it. I said, fabulous, send it over. And she sent it over. And it was a novel, it was like 90,000 words, like a human novel. And I was slightly startled, but I started reading it, and I thought, oh, this is fun. There are fun parts to play. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was jolly nice. So I turned up at the studio, and at lunchtime, the author, this nice woman, Jo Rowling, turned up. We shook hands and chatted, and I wasn't really this patronizing, but it's better for the story if I was. I said, it's a jolly good story, it's very nice, and I'm enjoying it. And she said, oh, I'm glad you like it, because I'm writing a second one. Are you? Good for you!